beautiful young child, man. Respectful, man.
He was
Give you
awesome.
the world, man. That was my everything. Yeah. I'm so speechless, man. I'm so heartbroken, man. My heart's crushed by that situation. And you know, if I just want justice for my baby,
Justice.
that she deserve it well. She ain't deserve this.
At all. She was asleep.
And it took all them to do this.
230 bullets in my home where my kids lay their heads. I work hard to provide for mine. And you just tore my family apart. My baby, she did not deserve this at all. Come forward, turn yourself in. My baby deserves justice.
Police in Flint are still searching for suspects after a 9-year-old girl was killed and a 14-year-old girl was critically injured in a shooting around 2 a.m. on Friday. Investigators say shots were fired into a home in the Mott Park neighborhood. This is a look at the house today. You can see bullet holes and markings left by investigators. The glass on the front door completely shattered. Bullet holes also seen on windows in the front of the home.
200 bullet shell casings found outside one house, one family's home, in the middle of the night. And inside that house, sleeping in her bed, was a 9-year-old little girl. Her name was Tyhari Knox. And she never woke up. Before we talk about what happened on the night of May 8, 2026, before we talk about the investigation, the community, the grief, we need to talk about her, who she was, what she loved, what she dreamed about. Because Tyhari Knox was not a headline. She was not a statistic. She was a child, a real breathing, laughing, dancing, singing child who deserved to grow up. And today, we are going to make sure the world knows her name. Stay with us. To understand Tyraye's story, you first have to understand the place she came from. Flint, Michigan, a city that has seen more than its share of hardship. A city that has been fighting for decades to survive. Flint sits in the heart of the Great Lakes state. This is the world Tyhari Knox knew. This is the world she loved. She was 9 years old. In many ways, 9 is the most pure age a child can be. Old enough to have a personality, sharp, defined, wonderfully their own. Still young enough that the full weight of the world hasn't settled on their shoulders yet. 9-year-olds still believe in magic, in justice, in the idea that good things happen to good people. Tyhari Knox was 9 years old, living in a house in Flint, Michigan with her parents, Tyraye Knox and Alexis Smith, and her siblings, and she was, by every account, simply wonderful. Let's stop here for a moment. Let's just stop and breathe and talk about Tyhari. Her mother, Alexis Smith, has told the world a few simple but profound things about her daughter. And sometimes the simplest descriptions are the most heartbreaking because they are so specific, so real, so undeniably the portrait of a living, breathing child who had preferences and passions and a personality all her own. Tyhari Knox loved TikTok.
Tyhari was awesome.
Awesome. Beautiful baby, man. I love that baby, man. I don't know.
She was smart.
I don't know what I'm gonna do, man. Oh man.
She loved TikTok. She loved to dance. She loved to sing.
That was my world, man.
She loved to do nails. She loved to do hair. She brought joy to everybody that she came across. She was a Girl Scout. She was a Broadnail Bulldog.
The funniest, y'all care, you can just get in an argument. She gonna come in there and do something funny. She gonna make you smile.
She was the light of everybody's life.
You can picture it, can't you? Tyraye in the living room, phone propped against a stack of books or a throw pillow, watching a 15-second dance clip on repeat, learning the moves, getting them wrong, laughing at herself, getting them right, doing them again. Better this time. Head down over the phone, tongue just slightly between her teeth, the way kids do when they're concentrating on something that really matters to them. That's who she was. A TikTok girl, a dancer. But it wasn't just dancing for Tyraye. She also loved to sing. There is something deeply special about a child who loves music, both the kind you move your body to and the kind you raise your voice for. Singing and dancing are fundamentally joyful acts. They are the body's way of saying, I am here, I am alive, I am feeling something too big to keep still. Tyhari Knox felt big things. She expressed them loudly and beautifully through song and through movement. She was the kind of child who could light up a room just by entering it, the kind whose laughter you'd recognize from down the hall. She was 9. She had just started to become herself. She was in that golden, fleeting period of childhood where you're discovering who you are, your tastes, your talents, your sense of humor, your people. She was figuring out what songs made her feel most alive when she sang them. She was learning which dances made her friends stop and watch. She was still in the process, the beautiful, ongoing process of becoming Tyhari. She had so much more becoming to do. She would never see her sweet 16. She would never walk across a graduation stage. She would never go to prom, never agonize over the dress, never take the photographs, never laugh in the back of a car on the way there with her best friends. She would never fall in love. She would never know what it felt like to hold her own child. All of that future was taken from her on a single night in May. Tyhari Knox and Alexis Smith built a home around their children. When the night of May 8th came, there were 5 children in that house. 5! A house full of kids asleep, as Alexis herself would later say, just asleep. A house full of innocence, of quiet breathing, of small bodies at rest after the full expenditure of another childhood day. That is the image that should live in your mind when you think about what happened. Not violence. Not crime statistics, not policy debates, a house full of sleeping children. Tyhari would have gone to bed that night the way she went to bed every other night. Maybe there was a routine, a specific time, a specific ritual. A glass of water maybe, a favorite blanket, the kind of small, private comforts that children create for themselves without anyone ever telling them to. Maybe she fell asleep quickly, the way kids do when they've burned through every ounce of energy the day gave them, and there is simply nothing left but sleep. Or maybe she lay awake for a few minutes, phone tucked away now, staring at the ceiling the way children sometimes do when their minds are still turning over the events of the day. A funny thing that happened at school, a song she was still hearing in her head, a dance move she wanted to practice again tomorrow. We don't know exactly what Tyhari's last hours of consciousness looked like, but we know what they felt like. They felt safe. They felt like home. They felt like every other night. And that is perhaps the most devastating truth of all. May 8th, 2026, a Thursday night in Flint, Michigan. By the time the clock pushed toward midnight, most of the neighborhood had gone quiet. Porch lights flickered on in the blue dusk and then were left burning as families retreated inside. The streets that had been alive with children just hours earlier now lay still and empty. Inside the Knox family home, the day had fully ended. Tyhari Knox and Alexis Smith were downstairs, awake the way parents often are after the children have gone to bed, watching television. The particular comfort of a quiet house after the kids are down, the day's chaos settled. A moment that belongs only to adults. Upstairs, the children were asleep. Tyhari was asleep. The clock moved toward 2 a.m. 2 a.m. is the hour that belongs to the unconscious, to dreams, to rest. It is the hour when you are most vulnerable because you don't know what's coming, because nothing in the ordinary logic of a family's Thursday night could have prepared them for what was about to happen. We are not going to describe what happened in graphic detail, because Tyhari Knox deserves better than that, because her family deserves better than that, because some stories don't need to be illustrated blow by blow to be understood. Sometimes the most powerful thing a storyteller can do is step back and let the silence speak. So here is what we will say. At approximately 2 a.m. on May 8th, 2026, something happened outside the Knox family home that no family in America, no family anywhere in the world should ever have to experience. And when it was over, Tyhari Knox, 9 years old, who loved TikTok and dancing and singing, who was asleep in her own bed in her own home, did not survive.
Officers were called just after 2 o'clock this morning to the 2500 block of Altoona Street and found 2 female minor victims. One victim was pronounced dead at the scene. The second was taken to a hospital and is listed in critical condition.
200 shell casings. Investigators would eventually recover 200 shell casings from the scene. Think about that number for a moment. Not 10, not 20, not even 100. 200. And somewhere in that incomprehensible, overwhelming assault on one single family's home, a 9-year-old girl was sleeping. In the hours and days that followed, the Knox family did something extraordinary. They could have retreated into their grief, and no one, absolutely no one, would have blamed them. The loss of a child is not something a parent ever fully recovers from. It is not something that gets easier with time in the way that people sometimes say about grief. The loss of a child rearranges the architecture of a parent's entire inner world. It changes the shape of every future day. But Tyhari Knox and Alexis Smith, in the depths of their unimaginable pain, chose to speak. They chose to step forward and face the cameras and the microphones and the reporters and the community members, and they chose to say, "You need to hear this." Alexis Smith's words, when she spoke about the shooting, carry the raw, unfiltered devastation of a mother who cannot make sense of what has happened because there is no sense to be made. She spoke about the fact that her home was full of children, that they were all asleep, that she cannot understand why someone would do this to a house full of sleeping kids. It was unnecessary, she said. There is no one here but us and kids. It's a house of kids, asleep.
I don't know why they would do that. I don't know. It was unnecessary. There's no one here but us and kids. It's a house full of kids.
Sleep.
Sleep.
Asleep. That word keeps coming back because it contains everything. It contains the innocence of what was lost. It contains the particular horror of being attacked at your most vulnerable. It contains Tyraye herself, small, resting, safe in the way that children trust themselves to be safe in their own beds. Asleep. Tyhari Knox's grief came out differently, as the grief of a father sometimes does. He called the people responsible for his daughter's death cowards. The raw, unvarnished word that a father reaches for when the formal language of justice doesn't come close to capturing what was done to his child. He spoke about the old ways, about the idea that disputes used to be settled differently, face to face, person to person, with consequences that belong to the people involved, not to children sleeping in their beds. All of this gun violence, this shooting back and forth, it has to stop now, he said. It's a young crowd doing this stupidity. We have to come together. My daughter is gone.
I just got a little things to say. For one, they were cowards, and they took a, beautiful young child, respectful,
He was
give you
awesome.
the world, That was my everything. Yeah. I'm so speechless, I'm so heartbroken, My heart's crushed by that situation. And I just want justice for my baby.
Just justice.
Cause she deserved it well. She ain't deserve this.
At all. She was asleep.
And then it took all them to do this. And all we want is justice for Tyhari.
Justice for Tyhari Knox.
And forever nine.
My daughter is gone. 4 words. The entire universe of a father's loss compressed into 4 words. Both parents did something else in their grief that speaks to the depth of their character. They called on the community to act. Alexis Smith's plea was direct and unflinching. If you know something, say something. She spoke to the people who might know the individuals responsible, might be protecting them, might be covering for them, and she told them plainly, your silence makes you complicit. Speak up, somebody. If it's your brother, cousin, uncle, whoever it is, turn them in. Because as long as you are keeping them, helping them, you are going to go to jail too. This is not the language of a woman who has surrendered to despair.
Somebody, if it's your brother, cousin, uncle, whoever it is.
Somebody.
Turn them in.
For real.
Because as long as you keeping them and helping them, you're going to go to jail too. Just make it easier for everybody and just turn yourself in. You took a baby's life.
For nothing.
For nothing. For nothing. Put the guns down.
This is the language of a woman who loved her daughter, who still loves her daughter, and who has decided that the most powerful thing she can do in the face of this loss is refuse to let it be meaningless. Alexis Smith has also started a GoFundMe campaign to cover the costs of Tyhare's funeral and to help the family navigate the financial weight of a loss no one was prepared for. Because even in the most profound grief, the practical realities of life don't pause. Funerals cost money. Time off work costs money. Burying your 9-year-old daughter costs money. And no family should have to face that alone. As of the time this video was made, the Flint Police Department's investigation into Tyhare's death remains ongoing. Sergeant Paul Spann of the Flint Police Department has spoken publicly about the case, and his words carry both the formality of official language and, underneath it, the weight of a city that is watching. The case is definitely being treated with the highest of priorities, Spann confirmed, and we are dedicating investigative resources to make sure that we are able to identify those responsible to bring them to justice. Highest of priorities, as it should be, as it must be. No arrests have been made, no motive has been established. 200 shell casings, and the police are still piecing together a picture of what happened and why. A 14-year-old girl was also critically injured in the shooting. Another young life interrupted by violence that should never have reached them. We keep her and her family in our thoughts as well. The investigation is ongoing. The Flint community and anyone watching this video is urged to come forward with any information they may have, because someone knows something. Someone always does. And Tyhari Knox deserves justice. It is worth pausing here to acknowledge something. We live in a time when gun violence statistics have become almost numbing in their regularity. Numbers get reported. Names get mentioned once, twice, maybe 3 times in a news cycle. And then the news moves on, as news does, pulled forward by the relentless current of whatever comes next. But behind every statistic is a specific, irreplaceable human being. Behind every number is a name. And behind Tyraye Fried Tapp, Knox's name is a 9-year-old girl who loved TikTok and dancing and singing, who had a whole life worth of music still inside her. We cannot afford to let her become just a number. We will not. When a city loses a child, the grief is not confined to the family. It radiates outward. It moves through the neighborhood like a cold wind, settling into the bones of every parent who hears the story and instinctively counts their own children. Every mother who pulls her kids a little closer that night. Every father who goes upstairs one more time before bed, just to look. Flint responded to Tyhare's death with a combination of heartbreak and fierce determination that this city, which has survived so much, knows how to summon. Flint City Councilwoman Tonya Burns, who represents the ward where the shooting occurred, became one of the most prominent voices calling for change in the aftermath. Her words are worth dwelling on. "We know a 9-year-old will not wake up the next morning," she said. "She will never see a sweet 16. She will never graduate from high school. She will never go to the prom. And a life was taken because of senseless gun violence." She went further. This was not just another shooting, Burns declared. This was the execution of innocence.
A 9-year-old little girl lost her life. She will never go to the prom. She will never have a sweet 16. She will never go to college. She will never get married. And we keep seeing this time and time again.
The execution of innocence. Those words are not political rhetoric. They are not performance. They are the words of a public servant who looked at what happened to Tyhari Knox and felt, as any human being must feel, the full moral weight of it. Burns continued. A 9-year-old little girl was asleep in her own bed when gunfire tore through her home. Mothers throughout Flint are terrified. Families are traumatized. Enough is enough. And then, the words that may resonate most. We cannot continue normalizing children being murdered in our neighborhoods. Normalizing. That word is important because there is a danger, a very real, very insidious danger in the way that gun violence in American cities gets discussed. There is a danger that it becomes background noise, expected, predictable, a sad but somehow inevitable feature of certain zip codes. Councilwoman Burns is saying no. No, it is not normal. No, it is not inevitable. No, we will not accept a version of this city or this country where a 9-year-old girl can be murdered in her sleep, and the response is a shrug of resignation. She stood with the family not only as an elected official, but as she said herself, as an advocate and a human being demanding action and accountability. Community leaders and city officials came together in the days following the shooting to use Tyhare's death as what her father prayed it could become, a turning point, a call for peace, a demand for something different. Vigils were held. Candles were lit. The community gathered in the way that grieving communities do, not because gathering makes the pain smaller, but because it makes the isolation smaller. Because grief, when it is shared, becomes something that can be collectively carried rather than individually crushed by. And through it all, Tyhari Knox and Alexis Smith stood at the center of it, speaking their daughter's name, demanding that the world see her, refusing to let her death be absorbed quietly into a long and painful national history of children lost to gun violence. Tyhari Knox's story is not happening in isolation. Across America, children are being caught in the crossfire of gun violence in their homes, in their schools, in their neighborhoods, in places that should be the safest spaces in the world for a young person to exist. The statistics are staggering, and we won't recite all of them here because we made a promise at the beginning of this video. Tyhari Knox is not a statistic. She is a person. And the best way to honor her is not to bury her in data, but to tell her story clearly and with love. What we will say is this. The community response to Tyhari's death is part of a growing nationwide movement of families who have refused to accept gun violence as something that simply happens to their children. Mothers and fathers who have buried their sons and daughters and then, out of love, out of rage, out of a kind of grief-fueled determination that is one of the most powerful forces on earth, turn their mourning into advocacy. They organize. They speak. They show up to city council meetings and community forums and press conferences. They start GoFundMe campaigns and foundations and nonprofits. They put their children's names on banners and t-shirts and yard signs, not to sensationalize their losses, but to ensure that the world does not forget. Tyhari Knox, 9 years old, Flint, Michigan, May 8th, 2026. Say her name. Know her name. There are no easy answers to the problem of gun violence in American cities. Anyone who tells you otherwise is either lying or selling something. The roots of this crisis go deep. Into economics, into history, into policy failures that span generations, into a cultural relationship with firearms that is unlike anything else in the developed world. Fixing it requires not one solution, but many, not one conversation, but thousands, not one election cycle, but sustained, unglamorous, often slow-moving work. But here's what is not complicated. A 9-year-old girl should be able to sleep safely in her own bed. That is not a partisan position. That is not a political stance. That is the absolute minimum that a civilized society owes to its children. And Tyhari Knox did not receive it. But let's close our eyes for a moment. If you're somewhere safe enough to do that, and imagine Tyhari Knox not in the context of how she died, but in the fullness of how she lived. 9 years old. Saturday morning. The best kind of Saturday. No school, no schedule, nothing pulling at you. The kind of morning where you wake up early, not because you have to, but because your body is so full of energy that sleep can't hold you anymore. She's up before her parents. She pads downstairs in socked feet on the cold floor, grabs her phone from wherever it was charging overnight, and crawls up onto the couch with a blanket pulled over her legs. TikTok opens. And within about 45 seconds, she's already off the couch again, standing in the middle of the living room. Phone props, just so, repeating a move she's been practicing, getting it better each time. Slightly too loud for 7 a.m., completely, perfectly, wonderfully herself. She would have had a best friend she told everything to. She would have had a favorite teacher who made school feel like something worth showing up for. She would have had a song, a specific, particular song that she considered undeniably hers, the one that made her feel most like herself when it came on. She would have had opinions, strong ones probably. The passionate, unfiltered opinions of a 9-year-old who has not yet learned to second-guess herself. She would have had big dreams. Maybe she wanted to be a dancer, a singer, a TikTok creator with millions of followers. Maybe she wanted to be something completely different. A teacher, a doctor, an astronaut, a chef. Maybe she didn't know yet, and that's exactly as it should be at 9. You're not supposed to know at 9. You're supposed to be in the middle of finding out. She will never get to find out. And that is a grief that belongs not just to her parents, not just to her community, not just to Flint, Michigan. That grief belongs to all of us. Because every child lost to senseless violence is a future that the world will never know. Every child is a potential cure we will never discover, a book we will never read, a song we will never hear, a kindness that will never be extended to a stranger at exactly the right moment. Tyhari Knox was all of that. She was all of that, and she was also simply herself, a 9-year-old girl in Flint, Michigan who loved to dance, who loved to sing, who loved to tack, who was asleep in her bed at 2 a.m. on a Thursday night. She deserved to grow up. To Tyhari Knox and Alexis Smith, we see you. We see your strength, even when strength is the last thing you feel. We see what it costs you to stand in front of cameras and microphones and a grieving community and speak your daughter's name, not just once, but again and again, refusing to let her be forgotten. You could have disappeared into your grief. You didn't. And that takes a kind of courage that most people will never be called upon to demonstrate. Your daughter was loved. Your daughter was seen. And through your voices, she will continue to be seen by everyone who hears this story, by everyone who says her name, by everyone who looks at their own children a little longer tonight because of her. Tyhari Knox lived. She danced. She sang. She loved TikTok. She was real and she was here and she mattered. She will always matter. If you have any information about the shooting that took Tyhari Knox's life on May 8th, 2026 in Flint, Michigan, please contact the Flint Police Department. Someone knows something. It might be you. It might be someone you know. Alexis Smith said it plainly. If it's your brother, your cousin, your uncle, turn them in. Because protecting the people who did this is not loyalty. It is not law. It is participation. And justice will not stop at the shooter. It will follow the silence too. Tyhari deserves justice. Her family deserves answers. Flint deserves better than this. If you would like to support the Knox family directly, Alexis Smith has set up a GoFundMe to cover Tyraye's funeral costs and to support the family as they navigate this devastating loss. We will leave a link in the description below. Please, if this story moved you, if Tyhari's name has stayed with you, consider sharing this video. Not for the views, not for the algorithm, for Tyhari, because every time someone shares this video, someone new learned her name. Someone new sees her. Someone new carries a piece of her story forward into the world. That is the only immortality available to us, to be remembered, to be spoken of, to be known. Let's make sure the world knows Tyhari Knox. A 9-year-old girl was asleep in her bedroom in Flint, Michigan. She had danced that day, probably. She had laughed. She had sung something, maybe just to herself, maybe for an audience of whatever small creatures of her imagination had gathered to appreciate her. She had been alive in the full, magnificent, ordinary way that children are alive. And then the night came and she was still. And in the morning, Flint woke up without her, but they carry her. Her parents carry her. Her community carries her. And now you carry her too. Tyhari Knox, 9 years old, Flint, Michigan. A dancer, a singer, a TikTok girl, gone too soon, never forgotten. Thank you for watching. If this story stayed with you, if Tyhari's name is still in your mind the way it should be, then please take 30 seconds and share this video on your social media and a text to a friend wherever. Say her name, Tyhari Knox. Don't let her become another forgotten story. Subscribe if you haven't already. We cover stories like this one because these are the stories that matter. Not just the headlines. The people behind the headlines. The lives that were lived before the moment that made the news. Drop a comment below if you want to talk about this. If you're from Flint, if this story hit close to home for you, if you have thoughts about what needs to change, this is a conversation worth having and the comment section is yours. We'll see you in the next one. But carry Tyhari with you until then.